We're live.
And we are live.
Yay! And no one's watching just yet.
Willkommen zu Wednesday Any Day, where we eliminate the Jews on a regular basis.
The final solution shampoo.
Yep, final solution shampoo. Eliminate dander. And raise your hair to a new master race.
No one's here yet, so we can say pretty much whatever we want.
Well, okay, we should probably just go ahead and get on topic. For the people that will be watching later, because that's really where most of the views come in.
True.
So anyway, the topic today, we were going to pick up where we left off last time, talking about the progression of technology over time and people's perceptions of it, but from a historical perspective this time. Who wants to start?
I'll try to give it a go. Why not?
Go for it.
All right. It's weird how there's a different setting almost for how we perceive technology now. A couple just years, not even that many years ago. Now it's a little bit more, but just maybe a few decades ago, new technology being innovated and invented. It was like you were getting these amazing things like the web, the computer, the phone, the smartphone, and now we're getting to an era where it was progression from new things that never existed before to now trying to improve on those new things that we have. Like, it went from the smartphone and the iPod to now the iPhone 220 million, iPhone 5, 5.5, 5C, 6, whatever. And iPhone versus Android, to where the market's being saturated, competition. I'm just spreading things out. But and then now we're trying. I feel like now it's getting ever more challenging for technology because we are trying to find new things to not just innovate but invent.
Mm-hmm. Right, and I don't know. The kind of the angle that I was thinking about it from is kind of is there still in history, did people react to things like these new inventions in a similar fashion to today? I mean, there's obviously parallels that can be drawn, but is it a strict parallel, or are we in a new age of super technology where we've kind of progressed to a point where people can't really cope with it like they used to do?
I honestly I think it is similar in a sense to where I think it's more alike than it is different, because if you were to show somebody, if you were to look at certain different technological advances, new things that were invented years and years and years throughout the decades in history, when it was first introduced to the public, a lot of times these inventions are negatively received, or people don't want to deal with it. You'll see, oh, this is evil, or this is too ridiculous. For instance, the television. That idea was initially looked upon negatively. I don't remember the guy's name, but there was a guy who was they were asking about it, and he was saying how Americans are never going to have the time to sit down and watch TV. Why? So he didn't see it as a necessary invention. And if you look at that compared to now, kind of the same thing with these new smartphones and VR technology and all that. Oh no, what they have more important things to be doing. They don't need to be sitting down and doing this. It's kind of the same ideas, but in different wordings and towards different technology.
True.
Well,
Go ahead.
something that should also be noted is that for most of human history, technology advanced very slowly, hardly at all. From the years 1000 to 1500, you would have seen practically no changes in most things. You know, so it's like within the last century, things have just changed so fast. It's like we're witnessing something that's never been seen before in human history. Um,
Hmm.
and and that's something that's really never been talked about or pointed at either.
True. It is like that. I mean, that's kind of what I was like getting at. Is it like because we've not only like unlocked this new like technology that like links up the entire world, but the computers that we use to run that technology are increasing at like an ever quickening pace in processing power and stuff like that. I mean, every 5 years they increase again. It's kind of we touched on that last time, but I don't know that it's even possible for people to like catch up to that. I mean, we have like supercomputers now that literally dwarf anything that we've ever seen before in terms of computing power. I mean,
Mm.
that we're simulating human brains and shit in. So who knows?
Yeah.
Right. I mean, things are just changing so fast that you literally have entire chunks of the population who cannot catch up to it, who are, in some cases, they refuse to try to mold to it. You know, I think we all have a grandma or grandpa who refuses to use the computer. You
Yeah.
know, and that's something kind of weird, really. Um, It's like a few thousand years ago, people probably would have been more receptive to the very subtle changes in technology. But today, it's like it's changing so fast that people don't want to adjust to it. They're scared of it. They don't know how to receive it, you know.
Mhm.
And I think to a certain extent, that's kind of reflected in like a lot of films that portray, the machines, having a mind of their own and turning against us, like the Terminator movies and shit. Or even I, Robot, or any other movie or TV show like that. I think those things kind of like highlight the fear that a lot of humans have of technology and the way it's changing so fast and on its own.
Yeah, there's a lot of fear in people's minds about the robot overlords taking over, I suppose. Um, it's really weird how fast the cycle of invention has gone, like within the last 100 years, how much we've kind of changed and how many things are different. Like, for example, the pharmaceutical industry. Think about like 100 years ago, penicillin wasn't even like discovered yet. No one even was able to make that something functional and new to start using for the betterment of humanity. And like you think when you go to those old timey drug stores, you see like fucking leeches in gigantic jars. You see these powders that say they have arsenic on them, and it's like, oh, you were using arsenic for things that you really shouldn't be. um, and now it's come to the point where people know what's going on. People actually know the things that are being used for their drugs. For a better part, they have the internet to look it up, and that's nice, but I could tell you that every day there's a new drug being made, and a lot of them actually go more towards the antidepressant categories, uh, it's like the stimulant and antidepressant categories are ones that I notice they get new drugs basically on a monthly time period. If you don't see a new drug pop up, then there's something weird about it, because people are trying to put new formulas together and make money, but there are people that want to like look at the actual data first, and there are a lot of people who are very scared. And now that we've come so far, like, oh, the technology's come so far that we can slightly change the design of what these pills are, slightly change the chemical makeup, but does that make them any safer? We haven't really tested the side effects yet. We haven't really looked into it, but we're putting it out on the market after this small, you know, you know, uh, sterile test, and think it's going to be okay. Of course there are going to be people that are going to be scared when they see that. And when it comes so fast and so many new ones are being made, people are going to have their apprehensions because they're not going to know what to choose if they need something, and that's where it becomes overwhelming. And I think that happens in a lot of areas of technology. It's just it expands so quickly and new things are being added to so many places like on a daily basis that you just don't know what to pick, what's going to be the right choice. Like, for example, when you just pick a you never know what's going to be the right idea for a laptop or not, and you go to a store and people say, yeah, this one's a good one if you want this, this, and this, but if you want, say, better processing power and you don't really care so much about gaming, then you want to go for this, this, and this. There are so many different places where we see technology expanding and people just pushing back against it because it's just we're slightly tweaking what we already have, and people are already overwhelmed by the fact that we have the things that we don't need anymore.
And I like that you pointed out about the variety of choice, to where it was technology like what it used to be when we did have start to see certain wonders of technology. It was like, for instance, something as simple as the fucking light bulb. It was just a light bulb. Cool, put it in my house, it works. Nowadays, but when you start to look at even something as simple as that, there's like, oh, do you want that light bulb? Do you want the light bulb that saves the fucking earth, as people pointed out? Do you want these colors? Everything to a key, and especially in the United States and Western nations like it, and in Europe, there's such a variety of choice. If you've noticed, there's from our food through our all parts of our technology, whether it's our computers, our TVs, our light bulbs, our video games, no matter what it is, some people, they need a baseline to grasp these new things, and there's nothing for them to grasp onto. It's just, you need to know exactly what you want going in, and they've never had to think about this before. But that's where this new breed of these new generations, this new breed of people, the new breed of people, they're coming into this, growing up with this new technology, so it's the new normal for them. I think when we were discussing last time, we're at the balancing point now where I think about our generation, our age range is one of the last generations to be at that balancing point until now you're going to have like our younger siblings, and eventually maybe our kids when we get older are going to grow up in and around this new technological era where everything is super fast, everything's varietous.
Yeah, I suppose that's true, and that was I I guess all throughout history that's really kind of been the thing. People reproduce at a rate that like kind of, I guess, balances out some technological invention. It's possible that we could progress to a point where it gets like so far advanced that like there's no possible way for people to really comprehend it. It's like it's progressing so fast that like people can't really grow into it, and that may be a point that we reach. But historically, I think it's really not been a problem. Obviously, it's people grow up with a new technology. Like the previous generation always is kind of like skeptical of it, and maybe within a generation or two, depending on the technology, it expands out into the world.
I know that for my brother and sister, for instance, the difference between them and myself, they're 12, about to be 13 soon, and I'm 20 years old. And even though I know how to do things, like I know how to operate different things on my computer, my brother and sister know how to do things like they know, for instance, like applications on the tablet and on out of the App Store and out of the Play Store. There are now applications that they know how to use that are amongst them that I've never played with in my life, or even just down to the bare bones, just that technology is so advanced to them. But and it's weird because I don't understand it, and even I, being only 20 years old, I should know, according to some people, I should know everything about these technologies, and I don't know very much at all.
Right.
And then, could you imagine trying to explain an app to somebody? Like, go to your, like, maybe to my grandparents to get it a little bit, but if you were to go to maybe most of people, if they were to go to their grandparents and be like, hey, and try to explain an app to them, they would be so lost. You would have to backtrack to, okay, this is a phone, this is or a Kindle, this is like a computer in your hands. Now this is what you can do, or this is like a website. You would have to find a way. It's kind of, I've heard it expressed as how you explain it to a caveman almost.
Yeah. Yeah, at a point, like it kind of goes over people's heads. They don't. I think that there's a thing with linguistics that I think kind of applies to a lot of human learning behavior, is that people have a proclivity to learn things early on in life. We have a development, like a very important developmental period where we're learning things in the world. But once you get to a certain age, that period kind of ends. And yes, you can still absorb new information, but it's at a much more slow rate. And as you get older, it gets slower and slower, the amount of like information that you can actually pull in. And so older people have a harder time actually catching up to all of it. Not all, but some have, like, and I'm not talking older people as in like in their 30s or, I mean like elderly people. I think like with language, the cutoff age is generally around like 16 years old. It's not like a cutoff as in that's when they stop learning language, but it's a
Period.
critical period. Yes, that's exactly what it is. It's the critical period where most children can just absorb that information, and I think there's a critical period for a lot of things. That was the term I was looking for. Thank you. Anyway.
It was and I do kind of see a difference with today's technology versus yesteryear's technology in the way it's perceived, because like we were talking about on last show, usually when we think of a previous generation being opposed to new technology, we think, oh, that's the old people, that's our grandparents, that's our great grandparents who are thinking about that, that's the old folk. But it's starting to get to a point where, like you guys were saying, that technology is growing at such a fast rate that even younger parents who are like maybe just in their 30s or something, don't understand the vitality of something as simple as a chat service like this, like a Google Hangout or Skype. They don't understand how you can make connections through online, because it's no longer just a blank chat form or a blog service. Now I can see you and I can hear you. I just can't touch you. But it's an interaction, and you can make a connection with someone like that. But on the flip side, you have people who build their entire relationships. Like, you have people who do understand it, and who, you see people who, good for the good or bad, end up dating and finding entire relationships online,
Mm-hmm.
And then how often, just not even that many years ago, the concept of working from home was not necessarily a big thing. Like, you didn't have someone waking up, getting to their computer, and that's their job.
Yeah.
Sitting at home, getting on the computer, it's like, whoa, are you a homemaker? Like, no, my job is on the computer, or I go to school on the computer. That's pretty relatively new concept.
That's something that's really hard to get across to like previous generations, is the concept of like you don't actually have to leave the house to work. It seems kind of foreign to them. It's almost like they have like there's something perverted about it to them. Like you can't just sit at home and do nothing, but you're not doing nothing. You're actually making money,
Yeah, it's like because of a lot of this technology, the boundaries that we previously thought divided us are kind of closing the gap. Like what Skep was saying, how some people, question whether or not you can develop a relationship through something like a Google Hangout or Skype calls or whatever. We're just becoming much more connected than ever before. It's like, some people are kind of like solipsistic in the way they view people. They just think like maybe they don't think this specifically, but they sort of act like the only people who are actually real are the people that, like, in their general vicinity. People they can actually, like, drive to and see within a matter of a few minutes or whatever.
Yeah.
Well, if it's not that, it's in the case of my parents, I remember when I first told them I was younger and I did have a long distance relationship at one point. But they were not happy about it, and my mom, I remember her comparing it to those old AOL online chats, like you could do the instant messaging chats, like in AIM
Yep.
too. She compared
Yeah,
it to stuff
no
like
doubt.
AIM, and
Sorry
she's,
about the dogs.
yeah, can you, like, go?
There's nothing right
Okay. Like, she compared it to that. She said, you really don't know who this person is. I mean, they could be typing on one screen and actually on the other screen be like some sort of, like, serial killer. I mean, just because you see some person on a video doesn't mean that they aren't a terrible person. It's to the point where some people can't perceive the fact that, like, having real conversations with people just because they're in a different place, it's almost like it can't be real to them. There's no way it can be.
It defies object permanence, which we learn about when we're small children, to where if I don't see it, and if it's not right in front of me, it does not exist. And it's kind of shifted now to where it's like, if I can't touch you, you don't exist. You're not real.
Basically.
I suppose in the way of my parents, it was just them being overprotective, and in their minds it shifted from it doesn't exist to it's there, but it's evil inherently because it's not really there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, if you were talking to someone in person, they might not have had as much of a problem with it, or at least they just would have had a different set of problems with it. They definitely would not have tried to make the claim that it was fake, because that would be insane.
Yeah.
I mean, isn't that kind of how, like, if, like, skeptic, whenever you talk to your parents and they try to say, like, what you're doing isn't real, don't you kind of look at them like they're kind of fucking insane? Like they're
Yeah,
crazy?
I do, because it's like I can't get across that, it's another human being on the other side of the screen, and I think you were discussing that in a test to, like, with your girlfriend as well, to where these are
Yeah.
real live human beings, just like whenever you watch someone on YouTube, and it's like you have to remind yourself, this is not a god, this is not a character, this is another human being on the side of that screen that eats and crafts and takes a shower, hopefully just like you do.
Well, we know the amazing atheist doesn't take showers.
And then there's also I'm trying to think what I was there was shit another thing with Lauren, with the overprotectiveness of a lot of people too, is I think a lot of where people's attitudes toward negative attitudes towards something in particular when it comes to new technology is that how it's starting to connect the world in a way that we never were able to. It used to be to where if you wanted to, if you even you didn't care about people across the world, and if you did, it was just there was no earthly way of contacting someone unless you had a specific person to talk to. Like, oh, I need to message the prime minister of this country. Let me send him a letter. But now you can just access through these amazing supercomputers now that we have in our hands, and you can talk to a random you can just go on to something like Omegle, and you can talk to a random person halfway across the world who you didn't specifically address, and you don't even have to have an interest with them. You just click a few buttons, and there you go. There's a complete and absolute stranger from the deserts of the Middle East, or the rainy city of London, or anywhere. And it's amazing, and it's hard to, because it's starting to take this huge planet that we have, and it's trying to shove it into a sphere in which we can grasp almost, and that can be a difficult transition for some people.
Right. I remember my mom said that the only way we used to ever get in contact with people was either having pen pals and writing them letters, or we would talk to them on our corded phones and sit by the phone all day.
Jesus fuck, like, how old is she?
It's beyond.
My mom is in her 50s, but my dad is also old enough to remember a time when microwaves weren't a thing.
Mm-hmm.
That's how far our technology has progressed within the lifespan of just my parents.
It's beyond just. Some people I've heard say, "Oh, it's just a nostalgic thing," but it's beyond that, to where some people also, I've seen the attitude to where it sounds like what your parents were doing, where it's like they're almost mad that this new technology exists, and like their technology was what was good and what was the best way to do it. And it's the human species overall they're a very conservative, held back species in when it comes to these new things, new values, new ideas progressing forward. And and I think it all boils down to, like I keep saying this, almost a fear. Like, what is the innate fear of change for people? And that's what I'm very curious about.
Well, also, I think they're upset at the fact that they're realizing that things are changing too fast for them to really catch up with, and they're realizing that they're falling behind and they're not keeping up with the times, and that makes them feel old on a personal level, not just a human level.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, I can understand that. Like, my dad thinks that Google Hangouts, for some reason, are places where people go to, like, have their conspiracy theories.
The fuck?
Hey, then.
What?
Jesus Christ.
Yeah, it's
Yes,
conspiracy
that's totally-
time.
Good God.
Yeah, it's totally, yeah. This is like the place for Alex Jones and Glenn Beck
And we're all in
and
a
the vigilant Christian.
Oh. You know, that's also another thing that is really cool about.
We are going to stop the technological menace.
That's another thing that's really cool about, like, not just technology like the internet, but just the way we can get ideas out. Like, instead of just being something that you had to write books by hand, or the printing press, like from writing books by hand to the printing press to now mass, like, machines that can just instantly put out newspapers and books and pamphlets. We can get any idea that you can get out there. Like, I could go pull up Microsoft Word right now. I could just type any idea I have on my head, make it look real good. I can have copies, go to the copy machine, and boom, I can get copies of it, and I could go around town and have my ideas spread out across the city if I wanted to, just in a heartbeat. Whereas beforehand, that process would have taken so much time that a lot of ideas were stifled. But now, anyone can get it out there, and anyone can be contacted. Like, it's an amazing chain to where you get the pamphlets out, you get the online ad, you get people contacting, you start getting buzz of ideas out there, and it's really, really intricate in the way we use technology, because we don't just use one piece at a time. Anytime you use any one piece of technology, you end up using multiple, especially when it comes to electronic technology.
Well, the build on what Skep just said, I mean, you don't even need paper anymore, and in a lot of ways that's kind of limiting if you were to print out some pamphlets and spread them around town, because you're completely limited to your the population of your town or city. I mean, you don't even need to print anything out. You can just have a blog post something on Twitter or Facebook, make a YouTube video. There's plenty of blogs out there, and that has the potential to reach hundreds of thousands of millions of more people possibly would have never seen it because maybe your idea could have been restricted to your local area. So it's much more. It's much better and faster than that, and it's more connective than that. So
I mean, we're even seeing, if you notice, technology outside of the this basic consumer level. If you look in, for instance, like the farming industry, with farming used to be a very individualized practice, so much so that it, from American history, where we had people who had to have their own farms and plantations, and they either hired people or they had slaves full of plantations and farms, and then you had to do everything by hand and have tools. But now technology is boosted to where they have huge machines that can take care of entire fields, and we can have mass farming and things like the seed. And now a seed that doesn't have to be seasonal. You have a seed that I don't remember what it was. There was that can grow all year long, and it doesn't matter what season you have it in, and it's reaching out into an industry to where now it can support bigger and bigger populations. And we have technology to have genetically modified food, make food bigger and better looking and tasting better, and it's ever growing, ever growing.
sounds like a bunch of fucking GMO bullshit to me. Trying to fucking make us gay.
They're trying to engineer the
Liberal,
world.
liberal scum.
And then it's amazing. Like if you were to see like just there are changes that even we don't see. Like we see certain markets maybe that we don't understand. We might not understand the full concept of the seed that grows all year, but the farmer does understand that technological change. But if you were to show them a computer, maybe he may or may not fully understand it, but we do. And it's to where now there's so many changes in technology and advancements that there's certain niche groups to where maybe one group will understand their advancement technology and how it applies to them, and this group will understand how they're seeing technology advance. But sometimes they look at each other's and they're like, I don't get it. There's so much to absorb, kind of what Lauren was saying. There's just so much to absorb and variety that it's absolutely insane.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, the dogs over here are freaking out. We have to stay muted for a minute.
No, that's fine.
Jeez. But I don't know, and then you also have to see where now a lot of times some people are forced to almost to have to learn new technology. You go to any job now, a lot of jobs now, and it's like, I guarantee you, basic minimum wage jobs, you're gonna have to learn to use a computer in one way or another, whether to sign in or to work with in exchange of money, and it's
Right.
everything is revolving around these new advancements, or a job like some factory worker, or even just physical labor jobs. Someone's gonna have to know how to use technology, either a new machine or a computer that they never had to work with years and decades ago.
Right. It's just something that's become so much more integrated into our society because we've realized how much better it works, how much faster it is, and how much more efficient it is. I mean, cash registers now are far superior than previous cash registers that were literally just boxes of metal. You know.
And I've seen the negative effects of these new cash registers to where there's stupid configurations. This is a little bit off topic, but an old cash register, you rang up stuff, it was real easy, took the money, whatever. But now especially now with like it because it's an entire shift in how we look at things. You used to go to like a fast food restaurant a couple decades ago, you ordered what was on the menu. Now it's like you can special order anything and everything, and then there's changes, and if someone screws up on a computer, a manager has to like swipe punch. There's 20 million different codes you have to punch into these computers just to ring up an order, and it can get to a point where you kind of want to you wish it was just, you wish you had the old technology at some points, because it's just become such a mess to where you have to stop and you have to pay attention. And then if the computer doesn't work, like I remember when I was working at McDonald's, somebody spilled tea on my POS computer, and my thing was glitching out, and I was trying to push the screen, and it wasn't activating, and had to keep rebooting my screen, and I had orders coming through. It was absolute insanity. So there's like it's better in a lot of ways. It's faster, but it can also be very, very detrimental when it goes wrong, because the more advanced it is, the more complicated it can be to fix. You know.
Right. Well, it's also because if you don't, depending on how you design some of these things, they could be so easily manipulated. Like your example with the cash register, I mean, someone could easily just like give someone who works at McDonald's could easily just give their friend like a free meal or something,
Too easy.
if they knew how to manipulate it.
All you
I
need is
mean,
a code.
right. Or like old vending machines, like you put in a quarter and it was basically like a refrigerator, and you open the refrigerator and you get access to all of the sodas, so you could grab all of them if you wanted to.
I was actually able to. I remember this in high school. There was a time when one of the new vending machines broke, and if you put in $1, 4 quarters came out, and the quarters would register. When you put in the dollar, it would register as you putting in money for the vending machine, but you would also get your quarters back.
Damn.
Right.
It's
Yep.
So I had literally probably bought for friends of mine and myself like $10 in snacks and had $10 in quarters left over.
That's beautiful.
it's hilarious.
Well, that's
Nowadays,
what happens when, someone just accesses it and puts in a little code or, changes it a little bit. And sometimes it can just break on its own and do that.
it's so easy to manipulate these new machines, because also it's like not even just stuff is shifting from mechanical to electronic, and electronics especially, there's one gigantic flaw that almost any and every electronic item has, and that's getting it wet. You can go up to, if you've ever seen in an MRE, some of them have a little packet of salt water. What you can do is you can go and take one or two of those and pour it into a vending machine, into like I think the coin slot. You can break it and have coins start coming out of the machine.
Skeptic knows from experience.
I wish I've tried it, but like it's weird how like or people like they jailbreak phones. Like people get into these things and just do all the amazing things, or like when you get a things like with emulators and home brews, and being able to take a video game that was originally meant for some crack old system, you can put it on a high-speed computer and have fun with it. There's so much manipulation now. People who do embrace this technology are becoming very smart in how not just to approach it from how it's meant to be, but they're also finding ways to get in and around it, and that actually is a pretty amazing fact. Like that at that level you were able to, Lauren. Did you ever find out how the machine got like that?
No, it was like that for like 3 days, and then I think it got like recalibrated or fixed or something.
You
Because
can
it
go
was the same one, because it had like a small dent in the side of it.
Mm.
you can go online now and look up the codes to vending machines. I remember I found one that it didn't give me anything free, but I got to a menu where I was able to scroll through and look at like different things. But it's amazing. Like you can just do a Google search and find out all these pretty numbers that can do stuff for you.
Yeah, that was not the first time it broke either. There was a time before where it had registered quarters it had taken as actual like value, and then the quarters would come back to you. So there was something that people would do and hack in to make it to where the quarters would still come back and you would get your fucking food.
They have a thing where you can a parking meter. They caught people on camera doing this. You take a popsicle stick and you stick it in a parking meter and you like shake back and forth, and you can get the minutes to extend without paying for it.
Oh man.
They
Yeah, you
caught
can't do that here now because we have electronic parking meters,
Yeah,
but
it's true.
It's just they sniff. It had security guard. They had like a security guard for a prison. They had just random people on the streets sitting there shaking and shaking the meter to go up. Oh, and in my high school, yeah, the vending machines never worked, Lauren, in my high school either for some reason.
Well, see, like we had really like street smart kids who always knew what to do, and we had a lot of broken vending machines. We had a lot of bathrooms that weren't supposed to be got into that were always like the locks were picked, and you know things like that. I wonder why they haven't tried to, up the security in places where they constantly have rudimentary locks being picked. Because like it gets to the point where if you have a security system on it, you literally have to take a crowbar to it to get into a certain room.
Yeah.
And I don't think that normal kids being like under the surveillance would want to do that.
Yeah.
Take too long.
There's a high school around here. It's not mine, but my former one, but this is another one. It's called Bonneville High School. I remember I went there for a trip to for driver's ed, and all over every vending machine they have these basic cage. It's like a cage essentially around the entire vending machine. You have enough area to poke what drink you want, put your money in, and for the drink to come out. But they have my high school they have stuff like that, not necessarily around the vending machines, but like whenever there's a certain area they don't want you to get into, it's basically a caged metal to block off areas to keep people from messing with it.
Yeah, they had to put alarms on our vending machines because people would tip the vending machines so much trying to get the shit out of them.
That's how you die.
Yeah, I know. They were like the kind of vending machines we had in high school were not like the classic vending machines you get most places that are, Pepsi, Cola, vending machines that are standard. It's like they were higher tech. They had a little bit better like security on it and the kind of code you could put in to where if you needed to access things for some reason. But it was also just like shit for the same reason. And it was a huge vending machine, like 1.5 versus 1, what the other would be.
Yeah.
And these kids would try to tip it over to get shit, and they had to put in alarms. But they didn't have anything like that in college because they knew these kids, if they're going to fuck with it and kill themselves, then that's their dumbasses' fault.
Yeah. We have a vending machine in our library on my college campus that is like supplies, like notebook paper, pencils, earphones, and all that.
Yeah.
And it's definitely also the difference between high school and college. There's a different mentality to where it's like once you get to college, at that point, it is basically your own fault, and anything you do that's too stupid. In high school, you would probably just go to detention. Here in college, it's like you're gonna go sit in jail for a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you're an adult now.
Yeah.
I know shit.
The thing is, you can tell that there's a difference. Like, I don't know why they downgrade the vending machines from the high schools. Like, at least some of the high schools that I knew about, they had really nice vending machines and really nice, like, different technologies. But then when you go to college, like, they have more basic things, like standard, like PCs and really basic vending machines and really basic printers. It's like, I don't know why there's a step down, but for some reason it seems to work a little bit better because the stuff doesn't get broken as much.
Yeah. I've also questioned why like my local library, on my college campus and all that they don't upgrade their computers. Like my laptop runs on Windows 10, which is works pretty well once you figure what if you pay attention to the ins and outs. But like if you look at some of the places you go, the hubs like computer centers, libraries, college campuses, high school campuses, they're all running not only old systems, but they're running outdated systems. And it's because, it is the bare bones and it makes it easy. But then a lot of times when you are transferring work between the two, or if you're trying to do something on a certain computer and they don't have the systems you need, you're almost penalized if you do try to help upgrade it. Like I remember I would ask, like here at the house, hey, do you want me to update the computer? And I'm getting told, no, leave it as it is. It's almost like you're insane for wanting to make it better. And even if you try to say, hey, I'll show you how it's done, or even if you now look at computers where they even tell you for free, they give you tips, you can ask questions and get a response back now with how to do it.
Yeah, sometimes I feel like people just want to push against progress for the sake of it being easy and convenient, but it's not always going to be the best thing to do when you do that. I mean, there are some times when pushback on updates are good because personally I wouldn't want to update to say like Windows 10. I've made sure that I won't get that update for as long as possible because I don't want all of the extra backdoors and all of the spying and shit. There's really nothing that they have to really care about. It's just I don't want them looking at everything I do constantly. It's just an invasion of privacy.
You're probably going to be dealing with that regardless. Once they do see, I imagine they see that as a problem. So once they encounter that, they're probably going to have that happen to you, no matter what version you have. You'll probably have to work from like closed systems to get any privacy, true privacy.
Yeah, it's true. I really do not want to go with them for quite a few different reasons. I really don't like Windows 8 as well because it's still kind of full of a bunch of backdoors, and I know they spy on us constantly. I'd rather be running Linux, but I wouldn't know the first thing about it.
Right.
Well, do you guys want to continue on this topic, or we could merge to something else, or I mean, it's up to you guys.
I kind of like how this topic is flowing.
All right, if you want to keep going on it, that's fine. I was just curious. I didn't know. I'm not sure what else to say. I kind of got like my piece out last time. Mostly, I was kind of wanting to let Lauren and anybody else that didn't get like a whole lot of chance to get their piece out. You know.
Right.
If anyone
Yeah,
else, go ahead.
When Skep was saying like how like if she tries to help someone with the computer, like she gets scolded at, and that kind of reminds me of this one time my mom's partner was on the laptop and it was working really, really slow, and I told her, well, it's kind of an older laptop, so that makes sense, but to her, like she kind of freaked out on me because to her she thought that was normal for it to just work super slow,
Yeah.
It's like no, it's just. It's an old laptop, so that's why. That's not how it's supposed to work.
I know with my friend when she plays one of my friends, she plays Facebook games a lot. When I was showing her how to do different things for her laptop, I was like, "Hey, here's how you get these ad blocking programs. Here's how to put bookmarks on your page for websites you're into." It's like simple basic stuff that like I was showing her how to set up, and it was, she was like, "Oh, that's really cool," and I was like, "Yeah, no, it makes things a lot easier." It's all it's everyone's and then that's another thing about like the difference between technology then versus now. The more advanced technology is getting, the more that we as the individual have to become an expert almost in a way for these new technologies. that you have to, if you want to even try to deal with it, you have to, if you want to get a good experience out of these new computers, you have to know the basics. You have to be smarter about them. If you want to know about the new phone or the new product, anything that requires direct usage, you have to become an expert in a sense to truly get the experience out of it.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think that kind of comes from just basic necessity and survival, It's like, imagine trying to navigate the world without ever using a computer today. Could any of you imagine that? No, you would all be lost.
Yeah. It's very it's different, but it's the same. Like I don't think we're really gonna get an idea of just how different or how similar it is until we hit the next few decades of technological growth, because there have been different points in the world where there's just been a shift and in the human race and how we approach life. And I think there is this particular era we live in. This is a very important balancing point to where we are almost there to where we're abandoning things permanently, where we're not going to be holding on to. There was something I saw where I can't remember who I was speaking to, and they were telling me how they think that we're eventually going to abandon the need for physical paper and coin money. That eventually it's going to, like, that's what Bitcoin originally, I think, one of the that was seen in the plan was to become something that you didn't need physical money for. You can do these things online, and that's kind of how like our banking systems work now. It's not just a vault, your name on it with a stack of cash. It's money that's not necessarily physically there. It's numbers in the computer. It's zeros and ones, and that is meaning something to us. That means something to us. That thing that we can't grasp. Again, back to that, we can't grasp it. We can't hold it, touch it, feel it, smell it, and yet that's supposed to be monetary value.
Yeah, it's like we're gonna have to start questioning, if that transition ever does, or whenever that transition comes, whenever we completely go over to digital, we'll have to start questioning, well, what gives these things value, and what is value?
Exactly, and then you also can ask the question, well, what gives the physical non-digital?
The thing with that is that those questions have already been asked. I mean, like, physical money, like all that paper money is it's a credit system. The government says we are assigning value to this money, like at least Federal Reserve knows we are assigning value to this money, and like it has this value within this system. That's really it. I mean, it's the same difference. That's why it's so easy to like convert it to digital, because it's the same difference. Not to mention that digital currency allows for like infinite microtransaction. Like you can get it down to like a perfect like integer of whatever you fucking like, whatever degree you point whatever. It doesn't have to be like physical. Physical currency is limited in that way.
Well, that's what I was kind of gonna attest to. That like in that, and then that's where you start to kind of break down barriers of anything. Where like where Adam said like what is value? Period. When we assign something value in this world, no matter what it is, that is just a perceived value, because there really is, in the grand scheme, that's part of our higher order thinking, is assigning value to objects. What does this mean to me, and what could it mean to somebody else? And that's a very, very unique concept to very, very few species, the idea of putting value to something beyond just the survival needs of food and water and shelter. Now we have items of pleasure. Oh, look how cute my face is. We have items of pleasure that now we have to say, let's put a value to this. You know, from items that we barter with or that we just trade and share and have fun with, to paper money, to digital currency. It's on its bare bones. Nothing really has a grand scheme value if it's a for pleasure item, but we assign a value to us because we just because that's what it boils down to. Because we assign value to it, it has value, and it's almost a circular logic to us
Well,
because it's such a unique concept.
well, no, you assign value to it based on what it means to you. Like
That's what I said.
for some people, gasoline's very valuable because they have a car, but then there's other people who don't have a car, so gasoline kind of means nothing to them.
Yeah, and then
Um,
and that's I think I didn't word it right. I'm sorry.
no, that it's the she's the special one of the show, folks.
Oh, come on now, Adam. We all know you.
What I was trying to get
Wow, I've
across
been
is
holding
that
off for like an hour, okay?
what I was trying to get across is just that just as a species together, anything and everything has a value because, like, you know, and it is based on the individual. So we want to. There is no. The question I would like to raise is, is there really an object? Does anything really have an objective value other than, I would say maybe food and water and shelter? But beyond that, does anything like for pleasure, I would say, like either like gasoline, air condition, the toys in a bin, or anything? Does any of that have an objective value to us as a species, or is it, like Adam said, based on what you have as an individual?
Right. I mean, it's kind of like when the people first came to the Americas. I mean, and the natives were just handing them gold because it meant nothing to them. But to the Europeans, gold was extremely valuable and much more rare in Europe,
Yeah,
and it had an actual value.
I think what would be interesting next time, like a topic we could get on, is if we I say that we should investigate like utilitarianism and related like philosophies, and come back and talk about like innate value and that kind of thing. Like, what is value?
Yeah, that'd be something I'd want to take some time on for everyone to like.
Yeah, we need to we've almost been going about an hour. I think we've all kind of said our piece on this particular topic, and we're kind of moving on. So maybe we should end this, and then we can come back next week and hit the new topic.
Yeah,
So
sounds good.
we got 2 viewers and fuck off.
All right, peace out.